Hey guys, Jennifer Rogers here with the Fenced In Podcast with Jennifer Rogers. Thank you for tuning in today. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share for more content like this. Today I am interviewing Travis Richey. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Living the dream. How about you?
Couldn't be better, I guess. So tell us who you are, Travis.
Man, at my core, I'm an entrepreneur. Business has been in my blood since, the early days, 8 years old. Whether that was on the right or the wrong side of the law, we've dabbled in both. I have the best opportunity in the world to be a father. My wife and I have been together 17 years, and we have four little ones who take up the entirety of my day and my life and my heart. And between business and fatherhood, that is really what I get to spend most of my time on. And the reason you and I get together today is because we share a similar path in the fact that we've both served a couple of years of incarceration.
So tell me your crime story because I have not spoke with you yet. So I'm interested to hear what is the Travis Richey story?
And boy, I wish it was sexier. I wish it was sexier.
Wish it was as sexy as mine.
Man, yours is so good. There's like 100 kingpin analogies I can make for you. I always tell my story like I wasn't the drug kingpin of Guadalajara. I didn't knock over the MGM on fight night. My charge that I went to prison for is transactions of an unregistered securities dealer or salesman.
So what does that even mean?
A
I've
good
never even
question.
heard of that.
It's funny that you say that. I'll tell you a story, then I'll get to what it means. So when I first went in to get processed, this is going back. So this is 14 years. So
Okay.
I'm much younger, I'm physically in shape. I'm fairly muscular at the time, tan, blue eyes. And I go in with this card, and on the card is a 3x5 card that has my charge, for processing. And it says TRNSREGSEC. That's all they could fit on the card. And as they're, looking for everybody's gang tattoos and affiliations and cutting everybody's hair, and so I get pulled out of that circle, that line after I get off the bus for transport bus. This gentleman pulls me into his office and he says, I've done this for decades and I've never seen this charge. What's the story? So I start to tell him the story, and he goes, I'm going to ask you one more time. Like, this is my jail. And while you're here with me, I want to know what the story is. Oh, okay. I said, well, you can look it up. I don't understand. And Jennifer, he thought that I was a Fed. He
Oh,
thought that I was coming into his jail under different pretenses. And he asked me three different times. Finally, he pulled up his computer, started looking and dialoguing, and he said, you don't have any other charges. You've never had a charge. That's really peculiar to me. Literally grilling me while I'm in processing whether or not my charge was legitimate. He had never seen the charge. So when you say that, most people I've ever told the story to also echo that same sentiment. What the heck is that? Very, very, very simply put, in the state of Arizona in 2007, this is how far that goes back. There was a law on the books that said any security, and a security could be defined as a hamster, a watch, a car, anything that has monetary value that's exchanged, that's a security instrument. Any security over $99,000 needs to be registered with the state, i.e., taxes, and anything that is not registered is a mandatory class 4 felony.
what?
True story. True story. Mandatory prison time for any unregistered security over the threshold of $99,000 is a very, 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 very fancy way to hold money managers accountable to paying taxes to the state.
Okay.
Now, we registered with the feds. We registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC. We filed all of our appropriate documents, our Form D, our Reg D. We filed all of the documents with the security. It's still actually on the Edgar website to this very day for people to look up. It was a $10 million offering, several of them. So the numbers were large, and this state of Arizona had a pool of investors a little over $3 million worth. And because of that dollar amount and the wires back and forth over $99,000, I had dozens of these class 4 felonies, dozens.
Wow. So when they came knocking, what was your initial thought?
Good question. I'll tell you how ignorant I was at the time. Two gentlemen in suits knocked on the door and they delivered me a thesaurus, which was an indictment at that time. And for the people listening, it may not be a shock, but for the general public, to hear the story from 2007 until my sentencing of 2012. At no point in time was I ever placed under custody. Never, not once. Never arrested, never put in handcuffs, never read my Miranda rights. None of it. None of it, none of it, none of it. Which is generally shocking to the people who think that they understand the legal system. If somebody's done something right or wrong, there's a repercussion that's swift and immediate, and we go to court and there's a bond, there's a hearing. None of that took place. None of it. True story. And so 2007, I was served with this indictment, this thesaurus, this big, and this litany of charges. And I was so ignorant, Jennifer, I actually tried to set up a meeting with the attorney general that had indicted me.
And how did that go?
I'll tell you how it went. The woman at the bulletproof glass desk, she told me, sweetheart, there's no way in the world he's meeting with you, and you should probably get an attorney. And that's what I did. That's exactly what I did. My uncle and my cousins are high-profile East Coast attorneys. And so I called them and said, who is, the biggest and the baddest criminal defense attorney on the West Coast? And they said there's a guy named Larry Davis. He's got a reputation. And boy, Larry did. He was a character for all the years. Larry just passed away a couple of years ago. I think he was a little over 6 decades in law.
Wow.
Very, very interesting guy. Dealt with high profile murders, celebrities of any sort that came through Arizona and got in trouble, and was just an absolute character. And so I spent years with Larry. 2007 was the scene of the crime, and 2012 January was the day that I was sentenced. And Larry really educated me. He would say to me so often, Jennifer, if the public knew that this was the truth, there would be blood in the streets. The public, what he meant by that was, the public has this assumption that the police department or that the prosecutors are there, to preserve and protect and to have this sworn duty to only do the right things, quote unquote, right things. And it doesn't add up when you really start to get into the blender of the system. My charge was a first-time charge. It was nonviolent, as they classified it, non-dangerous, and non-repetitive. Those 3 things are supposed to be what they call mitigating circumstances, which is a good thing. There was nobody who was stolen from. There was nobody who was beaten up or robbed. There was no ill intent. It was not repetitive, so this wasn't a pattern. On and on and on and on and on. My first plea deal was 66 years.
Oh my gosh.
Non-violent, non-dangerous, non-repetitive. 66. Yeah, they hit me with 20, I believe it was 27. It's going back now. I'm getting old. 27 class 4 felonies. It was the day that it took all the breath out of my lungs that day that I sat across from Larry and he presented that to me.
And what was his initial response? This is your plea deal. What was his stance on it?
Larry's stance on it, him and his partner Tracy were fantastic for me. They were willing to fight all the way to the bitter end. And I wanted to fight. I was young and I had some bravado and had money. And so I really was just like, this just doesn't make sense. If I can get in front of these people and we can have a conversation and I can explain it to them, there's going to be open dialogue and they're going to realize that this is not what it seems like.
Wow.
This wasn't an elderly scheme. I didn't cash any forged checks. It wasn't anything that you typically see, in these cases with regards to fraud. And that wasn't going to happen.
No.
I know.
Yeah. At what point did you realize that's not how the government works? That they really don't care?
They really, really don't care, Jennifer. You have nailed it. I realized the first time, I'm going to say 8 months into it, when we went into court, because at this point I'm just putting 50 cents in the meter. I'm pulling up to the courthouse, driving my own car. Nothing has happened other than I've been given this thesaurus of an indictment, which is a whole scam to begin with. And when we showed up for this hearing, and my attorney said, "Geez, Louise, you've got," he didn't say "Geez, Louise," used other words, but he said, "You've got several high-profile individuals here. I don't think these guys are going to want to settle. They're going to want to see this all the way through." I thought, man, that's so odd. Well, my case drug on for so long that I realized the attorney general that was prosecuting me was actually running, for a campaign. He was campaigning on this clean streets, clean vibe. I'm going to put the bad guys away, which all the elderly people love to hear, whether or not it's true. And so I realized pretty quickly that this was a political move. I then hired a third attorney who was best friends with that attorney's general. And we had Rolex watches, Cartier watches that were given out to these attorneys. We had duffel bags worth of cash, tens and twenty thousands of dollars. I had vehicle titles that were turned over to all of these things, and my charges started to magically go away, disappear, disappear, disappear. Yeah, it was an interesting game, and there comes a point where the government's just going to bleed you to death. 2007 to 2012, physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, and I'm tapped. I'm tapped. I'm running a bill of, six figures a year in legal fees. I'm still running the business, I'm still out there in the community. They've put me on the front page in terms of an indictment. The way that it reads is millions and millions and millions of dollars. The photo that they chose was my 16-year-old driving license
Oh my
photo.
gosh. And
In
you,
that photo, Jennifer, I have a black tank top wife beater on. I have puka shells necklace. I literally look like a cast member of Jersey Shore. And so when you run the story that,
it's
it's the old Tony Robbins adage, like you get the paper on the street and the paper says hurricane coming, everybody buys the paper. So here I am, 22-year-old kid, millions and millions and millions. And there's my photo, this jacked up Jersey Shore lookalike. And it goes viral as it should. So they knew what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing. The court of public opinion always seems to win for them, right? So, anyways, it was a very, very, very sobering reality that I was not going to get out of this. And so the goal then was, how do I mitigate 66 years down to zero? That's where my head went to. And that's the conversation I have with people now. I have a good buddy, in the Midwest right now who's facing a single charge. And he called me and he said, I'm going to fight it. I'm going to take it to trial. And I went, oh, don't, your life, but geez Louise, don't do that, right? And I said, what's your worst case scenario if you lose on this felony? And he said, I don't know. They might just drop it to a misdemeanor. And I said, no, what's the worst case scenario? And so I looked up the statute and it's 4 years. And he said, no, there's no way that's going to happen. And I said, buddy, I don't know if I would err on the side of no way that's going to happen. I've seen a lot of court cases in my last 14 years on this side of the fence go sideways. I've seen a lot of people get taken advantage of because they thought that they had good legal representation or that their attorney told them, don't worry about it, we'll fight it. I mean, this is going to cost you a lot of money and it could cost you years of your life. So I say that as, to everybody out there who might be listening to this that's fighting a charge, the goal and my goal at the time is how do I mitigate it? How do I take it from a 66-year initial plea to zero, to probation, to show them, of these 5 years that I've been out and free, they're non-repetitive, non-violent, non-dangerous, good citizen, good person, tax paying, all the things that you would think a judge would want to hear was really my goal. And so that was where my head went to. How do I fight this thing, start to finish, and get out of here with probation?
yeah. So how did that happen for you?
It didn't. So we started this journey started, seriously in 2011, where I told my attorneys I want to go for the jugular. I'm just exhausted and I'm running out of time and money and energy. And it was the fourth quarter of 2011 that my attorney Tracy came to me and said, "Hey, I've done this for a long time. Let's do this after the holidays. Let's get you through the holidays." And I didn't know what that really meant, but when I walked in January, I knew why she said that. She knew I was going to be sentenced to prison. I didn't. I was still courageous and ignorant. And so I walked in January 20th, 2012, and all of the things that I thought were normal and good, where you went to school, how much money you raised, your family, your pedigree, were all used against me in that courtroom because I should have known, is what the judge said. And the judge read my pedigree out loud. And when he was finished, his exact words in the courtroom on my minute entry, he said, "And because of that, I'm going to make an example out of you." And he remanded me immediately to 2 years in the Department of Corrections, 2 years in prison, immediately.
No self-surrender.
No self-surrender. I'd been out for 5 years, no problems, no drama, no issues, no nothing. I've been out for 5 years fighting this case on my own. No, nothing. Gave me zero. Immediately self-surrendered. Sheriffs took me into custody immediately with my suit and my cell phone and my car keys and everything right there. That was the day my life changed.
What did that feel like for you walking out of there? What were your thoughts, your emotions? Like, walk us through that moment in your life.
That immediate concern goes to everybody else that was in the courtroom for me, my family specifically. And so that immediate bravado comes back to you, or at least it did for me. There was no breaking down, no tears, I just mouthed, to my wife and said, I'll be all right. We'll be okay.
Oh my gosh, I forgot that you were like married. Did you have kids at that time?
Uh-huh. We had one boy, and he was less than 6 months old.
Because usually in these situations, self-surrender, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, you have to get your
Yep. Yep. We still did the same thing that we had done for the last 5 years, every 30, 45 days was drive up to the courthouse, put our 50 cents in the parking meter and walk in because for years I fought this and for years it was delayed. There was no progress on the prosecution's end, no progress on the defense's end. And so the judge just said, well, you guys got to figure it out. And Jennifer, that was so weird for me, at the time. Now I get it. But at the time, I thought, golly, this is such a waste of everybody's, fill in the blank, time, resources, money, energy. Like, this is such a waste to put something on the docket. Why would you do this? And I know it sounds so simple and so kind of goofy now, but you say to yourself, like, these are grown adults. These people argue for a living. There has to be some sort of culmination of ideas and beliefs that get together and go, okay, what would be the best scenario for everybody? Well, this person makes a lot of money and that's good for the community and for the tax base. Okay. This person, okay, they do employ people, so that's good. Like I thought that there would be some sort of dialogue like that, but it just simply wasn't. It was how can this prosecutor get the deepest possible sentence so that he could put this on his record for the next political position that he was vying for? That's all this was.
Man, and it's like you see these cases all the time, and you were in a fortunate situation where you could afford to,
Yep.
finagle your way even down to 2 years. Let's think about how many people are out there that don't have, and a lot of which are innocent and take a plea because they are afraid of gambling their life. That I say it all the time that our justice system, number one, it's a sham. And number two, it needs a total overhaul. But in order to do that, you'd have to do away with it and start a whole new one at this point.
And you'd have to dig into the money.
Yes.
And that is something, while I was incarcerated, I wrote this letter that said prison is just Amazon. You're looking for places to put packages, and the state will pay or get paid, I'm sorry. The state will get paid, plus or minus $30,000 a year per person to house these individuals. And depending on the state, et cetera, but the state will typically have a profit on that of north of 66% per person, which means if I'm incarcerating people for $30,000, that's my payment. I'm only getting $10,000 worth of expenses that are coming in. So there's a massive profit here to keep these packages in place. And we've seen this time and time again where judges work together with prosecutors. And, I've explained this to so many people. To your point, what we fail to remember is that lawyers walk into these buildings every day and they stand across from these judges every day, multiple times a day. Those same people go to lunch together. Those same people probably have colleagues and or loved ones that work or worked at the same firms that they do. These people have happy hour together. When a judge retires and that judge came through, let's say the prosecutor's office and then worked in the defense public sector and then started their own practice and they retire, now you have everybody getting together to celebrate this judge's. And I say that because these people are friendly. They have to work together every day. So Jennifer walks into court and Travis walks into court. We're just docket number fill in the blank to these people. I know that behind this action or this court docket is tomorrow's birthday, is today's happy hour, is 2 years from now job promotion, is a letter of recommendation from an attorney general that like there is so much intertwined in this quote unquote justice system that is a sham. And so you'd really have to unwind all of that, which is darn near impossible.
Yes, it is. So you get incarcerated. Are you in state or federal?
State, you want to know why?
Yes.
I sat down with the feds. I sat down with the feds at Applebee's repeatedly, and they poured through my documents. The feds wrote me a clean bill of health.
Because you know, if it's a strong enough case, the feds are picking it up. Would that
Absolutely.
that you couldn't get it be you? They were playing the long game on the state because they knew eventually you'd run out. You'd go.
1000%. I have a letter from the FBI, the regional director of the FBI, that wrote me a clean bill of health. No fraud, no misappropriation, no charges.
So did you try? I guess at this point you just accepted it, but did you try to appeal it and take it up and up and up and up?
Absolutely. I did everything that I think you could possibly do financially with enough time. I tried all of it. It is literally a statute in the state of Arizona that says any security instrument over $99,000 failed to register is a mandatory jail time. Period. So that's what my 66 years of plea, my 27 plus counts came down to one singular count that required a possible 4 years on one count, and the judge just split the baby and gave me two.
So what was state prison like in the state of Arizona?
Jail is horrible. Prison is much better. So I make that joke often. If anybody's going to go to jail, it's a bad idea. Jail is disgusting. Prison for me was easy. You aside from the family and all the dynamic that you hate to say that out loud because people just shudder at that thought. But let me qualify it for you, for everybody listening, is that my prison sentence was on a minimum yard.
Okay.
Very, very, very minimum. My prison was an old Motel 6.
Okay.
And it's shaped like two L's, basically. And in the middle of those two L's was the visitation trailer. And this yard was a working yard, which to a lot of people listening, I don't know if you know what that is. I'll qualify it. It shocks the shit out of most people, which means that about 80% of everybody at this prison yard leaves every day to the public and has a job in the public facing sector.
Okay.
And so because of my background and my pedigree and my actual degree in college, I was sent to the Cochise Community College every day.
Oh.
And I had the opportunity to teach all of the other 4 yards that met there, the inmates. And so I taught a business class there, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And when that wasn't in session, when they had holidays and the college was closed, they supplemented my job, my prison time, with working at the elementary school.
The elementary school.
I was waiting for that. Yes, you got it. If you can even, it's Jennifer. It is the most surreal experience. Do you remember? Did your parents ever visit you for your birthday, like when you were in elementary school, back in the good days when they could bring like cupcakes and cookies, and they didn't make you do like
my birthday
store-bought?
was on New Year's Eve, so they would
Okay.
have been there. But class parties, stuff, yes.
Yep. And so you remember old school cafeterias that when the doors opened, they had like the fly fans that would kick on so that they keep the flies out, right? I am in prison in an elementary school in Orange, head to toe, and I have a pizza slicer and I'm cutting the rectangle pieces. You remember them, the terrible mozzarella white pizza slices from our elementary youth. And that door opens up from about 100 yards away. I'm in the kitchen. The door opens up. And it brought back every childhood pizza, memory that I ever had of our parents visiting us at school, because somebody's mom was bringing in the cupcakes. They were fighting the balloons with the fly fan, right? And here I am incarcerated, helping 6-year-olds open their chocolate milk containers. This is the most out-of-body, surreal, bullcrap experience I've ever been involved in my life.
Did the parents know? I mean, they had to have known because they saw your.
Jennifer, it got worse than that. The parents would say that they were grateful for our service. It was because they knew. This is what got so weird. This town was such a garbage town by the border. You could see the Mexican flag from our prison when we'd walk the track at night. It was that close to the Mexican border. 40% of our COs would come across the border and they would live in the other side to get US wages. And this was a town that was so dilapidated and run down and just garbage. The only industry there was prison. And so the parents, the teachers, the superintendent of the school who I worked for, I thought, this is normal to you guys. You guys have been doing this for decades. And if they didn't have prison labor at 40 cents an hour, there would be nobody to cut the grass. There would be nobody to take the food off the truck from Cisco and put it into the walk-in freezer or the cooler or prep the meals for the day. We were vacuuming the cafeteria, like with the shop vac after the kids. we would take down decorations that these teachers would put up for like different holidays, and then we would vacuum their rooms. Jennifer, I promise you, it was like, how did a guy go from a multi-million-dollar earner on the street and he wasn't quote unquote good to be there? He needed to be incarcerated to literally 48 hours, 72 hours, 96 hours later, I'm back on the street making 40 cents an hour. The only answer is that it goes back to financials.
Oh, yeah.
It goes back to money. And when you really unravel that, you would see, okay, at the time, I'm sure the wages are much greater now, but at the time, I was being quote unquote paid. I think it was like $7 and change an hour. And the prison was charging me for room and board. And they would put on my books that 40 cents an hour and they would take the difference. So the prison would have the contract with the schools, with the garden, with the wildland fire, with the sheriff's department, with the fire department, community garden, all of these different, so cheap labor jobs, right? $7.25 an hour minimum wage. And the prison would charge the difference for room and board and put the 40 cents on our books. So if you're the prison, now I have inmate labor that's bringing us millions of dollars a month. And we're also being compensated to house these people from the federal government.
That is insane.
It's a lot of money.
So you get out, what happens next?
Great question. I get out, my wife picks me up, the greatest woman I've ever met in my life. She came down every Saturday and Sunday, visited me, took the 5-hour drive one way, just all the hell that every guard put her through. And so she picks me up, and I learned about the life of probation, which may be worse than prison, folks. Probation, boy. So they gave me a 12-year prison tail or probation tail. 7 years fixed with an opportunity to extend for 5, which of course they did because they wanted their monthly fee, right? And, probation for me was fine because I didn't have any addictions. And I'm sure you can speak to that much greater. That is a world that I feel so sad about because I haven't lived, so I'm not right. I'm just telling you what I've seen. I've seen so many people that, first of all, drugs are more prevalent inside prison than they are on the streets. Let's start there.
Yes. And it's a terrible epidemic, and it's only gotten worse.
They're now literally prescribing drugs inside that are equivalent to oxys on the streets. So don't even get me started on the BS that they're anyways. So the addiction for me was always super sad to come in contact because when I get out, I had to do like 90 days of good time probations, which requires you to go to these classes. And so I show up to these classes. And so my probation officer, Brent, he says to me, he goes, "Hey, I don't know where to put you, but I got to find something for you. So I need you to go to this weekly class." Okay, sure. Whatever. The first day I show up, Jennifer, everybody thought I was a Fed, right? And so I had to pull out no, guy, because I'm telling the story, we're all sitting around and everyone's like, "Oh, I relapsed this time and this and that." And here I am, I'm like, "No, guys, I got out last week and I've never done drugs. So I'm just here. You can probably just skip me. I'm just doing my time here." And so I'm about 3 weeks in, Jennifer. I turn it into like a Tony Robbins teaching moment. And I'm sitting there and I'm intrigued. And I'm like, "Jeremy, why can't we get our crap together? What's the deal?" And here I am, I got my chair turned around backwards and you're going back to the same person. You know that this is going to happen. And so I'm trying to give these guys these coaching experiences. So I get a phone call from Brent, probation, and he goes, "I don't want to use the term disruptive, but we're just going to mark the class as completed for you." And I said, "Oh, okay. You're not welcome back. We're good." And all I could do was sit across from these people and be like, "You're going back to the same people, places, and things." And so when an individual, to give people a full color here of what we're talking about, when an individual leaves prison with an addiction, let alone a prescription for these addictions from the prison, terrible, and then they go to a halfway house or they go to a sober living house, most of those people are going to be in the same spot. Most of those people are going to be hand to mouth, trying to get ahead, to get a job. And some of those people are going to be bad actors, bad characters. And so then someone's going to say, "Oh, I just need to take this pill because it'll make me okay for my interview tomorrow," or "I just need to smoke this weed." There's 1,000 excuses that'll happen every night in every sober living across America. And now you get the one guy or the one gal who really, really, really is holding on for dear life, who is surrounded by these opportunities to relapse or to trip up. You combine that with lack of transportation because they don't have a car, their credit score shot. You combine that with lack of financial resources to get yourself out of this crap hole. You combine that with this massive amount of insecurity and heaven forbid that you're a mother or a wife, because the women get this massive amount of guilt poured upon them. How could you leave your kids? How could you do that? How could you're a terrible mom? You combine all those things together, and before you've spent your first week, you've relapsed. You've put yourself into a situation.
And not only that, so when I was in prison, I volunteered to go to the drug program. And it
Wow.
didn't give me time off or anything like that because I did classes and I volunteered to go. Now, I had been clean. I knew I wasn't addicted to drugs anymore. And I'm sitting in this class, and, the doctor that's teaching the class, he starts bringing up relapse. And I just interrupted him. And I was like, this is the problem with these programs that are out here today, is that relapse should not be an option. Because for me, if I relapse, I might as well take myself out of this world, because that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm not either halfway, I'm all in or I'm all out. So why is it that in these classes, y'all are making it comfortable to talk about, oh, if you relapse? No, it has to be a hard stop. There should not be an option. And so when I was getting ready to get out, he actually called me back into his office, and he said, I really enjoyed the perspective that you brought to this. You're so very passionate about it. And where no one else wanted to talk because they were forced to be there, you volunteered to come, but you had the most insight. And it was like, I have been addicted. I'm never going to be the person that you will ever hear say, I'm in recovery, or I'm so many years clean, or hey, my name is Jennifer and I'm a recovering addict. No, Jennifer Rogers and I was addicted to methamphetamines from 17 to 22. And when I gave it up, I was no longer addicted. The end.
I love it.
The end. And that makes a lot of people mad, but it's because you can't run this recovery business.
Got it.
And have all these funds funneled in if we don't give people the out to continue to create this cycle of coming back and coming back. Absolutely not.
Well, the methadone clinics don't even,
Oh my gosh, please don't get me started on that. They're the Suboxone clinics, because now every corner there's a sign here where I live at, Suboxone clinic, Suboxone clinic.
Yes. They're giving Suboxone in prison now. Did you know that?
No, but let me tell you this. So that is ridiculous. And I'm not
terrible. It's terrible.
It's terrible. I received a phone call a couple of weeks ago, and it was actually it was a message on TikTok from a girl that was looking for a rehab, and she's addicted to fentanyl, and she was having trouble finding someone that would detox her with the type of insurance that she had. And then I found out that she was pregnant. So I am calling around place after place after place, and I'm hearing no and no and no and no and no and no. And finally, one of the directors he broke it down to me. He said, nowhere wants to detox a pregnant woman off of fentanyl. They want to put them on a maintenance program. So she's going to have to go through one of the major hospitals, get her on a maintenance program, and then one of our programs can take her. And I was like, so you mean to tell me that y'all want her to go from fentanyl to Suboxone, and she's going to remain addicted, and then the baby is going to be born addicted, and he said, and then we'll taper them both off. So that I cannot accept that. Like, that to me is the most absurd and insane thing that I have ever heard in my entire life. What do you mean? And she's first trimester in her pregnancy. So you mean to tell me that y'all would rather swap the drug of choice, keep her baby addicted, to taper them both off, and this baby being born with this effect of Suboxone? Absolutely not. So luckily I ended up in that whole group, and all these people I didn't know started coming together, like calling, and I finally found someone that agreed to take her. But it took the CEO of that program bending their own rules for her to come and to detox down this path. And she desperately wanted it. She was living out of her car. Like, it was a situation. She reaches out to me, a total stranger, because she sees my interview on the Matt Cox podcast. Can you help me? I don't know nowhere else to turn.
Jeez.
Why are we in the state that we're in this world where it takes something so drastic for someone to get help? I understand it's a business. I understand places have to get paid, but to turn someone away that is so in desperation to be helped because they don't have the right insurance and they can't afford to pay you when every bed in your place is filled but one or two. Make that make sense for me.
It doesn't. It doesn't. I sat down with a woman in Utah and a similar story. And so she unfortunately, she says it on camera. She says, I found out that I would get free medical help while I was in prison. And so I committed a crime. Isn't that like, that's just the lowest of the low, the worst of the worst. Like, and she said, I am literally on the streets. My parents are trying to help me. Like we're trying and trying and trying and trying and trying. And she said, no big deal. If I go in and I commit a big enough crime where they send me to prison, then I know I can get the help that I need. And it'll be as long as I need it for, and it'll be free, entirely free. And it's so sad that she had to get to that point. But these are stories that need to have light shed on them because the recovery industry for me has turned into the breast cancer industry. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't know anybody who has died from breast cancer. But we continue to raise like $1 trillion a year for the Susan G. Komen Foundation. And I'm sure they do good things somewhere, somehow. But like, why haven't we fixed it? Like, what's going on? And to me, it's this same problem. Now we've moved down the line of, hey, don't worry about fentanyl. We'll try to get them on something while they're incarcerated. We'll put them on a prescription for Suboxone. And now the greatest part is an inmate who pees dirty while he's in prison was given that dirty pee from his prescription that the prison system gave to him. It is the most convoluted, and now we're kicking people out of prison doors who are uneducated, who are unrehabilitated, and who have a prescription for drugs. And we go, yeah, that's the system that works. That's the one.
But
That's
it's
our solution.
a return because if we don't rehabilitate them, if we
Come
don't
on back.
give them anything, they're going to continue to return, which then funds the pocket, the private prison complex system. Come on. And we all know that that's a thing, but people are too scared to really talk about it.
Oh, totally. Oh, totally. That is such a real thing. If you had any industry on the planet, you take Southwest Airlines. If 80% of their flights crashed every year, there would be no Southwest Airlines, right? There would be no revenue. Nobody would follow behind it. 80% of all inmates will come back and recidivate in that first year, nationwide statistics. And that's an industry that is not only we accept that 80% failure rate, but every year we give it more money.
Oh, yeah.
So 8 out of 10 airplanes fall out of the sky every day. And we go, yep, you know what? This works. And congratulations on the 20%. How much more money can we give you?
Yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
it's crazy. So I'm going to talk to you about a situation in the state of Georgia and really nationwide. And I'm going to give you a statement that I have made, and then I'm going to get into this. So there is a vast difference in male prisons and women prisons. And in women's prisons, they're incarcerating women at a higher rate right now in the United States than men. And the women are continuing to, go back rate than men. So we're placing these women in incarceration. We're removing them from their children, their family unit, and we are continuing to incarcerate them at the highest rate, but yet we never made an accommodation for imprisoning women. Prisons were built by men for men, and now we're taking women and we're placing them in a male institution, but yet we've never made accommodations on how to actually meet these women where they are. And 99% of the women that are in there, it is because either a drug problem or poverty. And they go hand in hand. So a lot of these women, especially if you see women with violent crimes, it's typically because they're robbing because they can't afford to feed their children, and a robbery goes bad, or they're addicted to drugs, or they're selling drugs, and it all comes back to poverty. So we incarcerate them. We don't take care of their health needs. They do not provide enough sanitary things for the things that women go through every month. And then you've got officers sleeping with the women inside of the prison. And now we're just going to release them and send them back out, and oh, they'll be okay. And figure out how to get your kids back, or, we're not going to teach you how to handle your children hating you and the fact that they don't trust you anymore and all this guilt and grief that you're dealing with. And do you know, in the state of Georgia, they were still shackling women to the bed while they were giving birth as of just a couple of years ago. It literally just got changed. I had an employee at my company, National Association of Women's Prison Reform. She was violated on a technicality from the drug program because she was fraternizing with a boy in the drug program. She's pregnant. They violate her and send her to prison, and they let him stay home. She goes to prison. She has this baby. They shackle her to the bed. They remove the baby from her care. She never sees it again. They don't know what happened. She luckily had a family members, and the dad that did not get violated came and picked the baby up. The women that don't have that, they never know where their child goes. They don't give them counseling. They don't give them grief therapy. They don't allow that child to bond with the mother. They rip it away. They keep the prison babies in the NICU. Then they send these women back to prison, bleeding, breast milk, all the stuff back into the pod. And, oh, well, you did a crime. Should have thought about it.
Correct. Yeah, it's the coldest, most horrible thing that I could think about. Actually giving birth or having a child ripped away from you while incarcerated. I mean, there's just nothing worse.
No.
And they're so vulnerable. You know, when I speak to the women's populations, I always tell my wife, they're always the worst stories for me because, like you said, it's usually addiction or poverty. And the third one is usually because of a male's influence. And that's the part that frustrates me the most. It's like we have such an epidemic of lack of male leadership in this country. It has become so pathetic the way that these males have turned out and are turning out, and that the addiction to pornography, the addiction to video games, the lack of hustle or grit or work ethic to work 45, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. There is such a vacuum of real men in this world. And unfortunately, it's a trickle-down effect because when you don't have a good role model as a father, like many of these women didn't, they fall in love with the first boy that gave them attention, or the second boy, or the third boy, or all the boys. And then it turns into just a series of poor choices. And 9 times out of 10, you know, their looks or their acumen gets them somewhere, not just sexually, but it could be a robbery. It could be, you know, and so then they become involved in these things. Oftentimes they're the only ones with driver's licenses in the crimes that I've heard about. So then they become the driver. And now all of a sudden they're facing 20 years for an attempted murder. And I don't say that. I didn't get into this prison reform to argue about whether or not heroin was a Schedule III drug or meth. I didn't do that. My argument is that if we are going to incarcerate anybody, and 88% of those people are going to get out at some point in their life, it behooves the world, the community, the schools, the employers, everybody to make sure that those people are rehabilitated to the finest of our abilities. They should want to be citizens of a community that they can give back to. They should want to be held responsible to a higher power. And we're not giving them that. We're giving them prescriptions for Suboxone. We're giving them excuses for dirty UAs. We're giving them lack of employment, lack of resources, and we're wondering why we say this thing's broken. And I venture to say it may not be broken. It may be set up the way that they originally intended.
Exactly. And then, you know, and then here we all are out here fighting the good fight because we believe in it and we believe in change and we believe in the right thing. And sometimes it's frustrating because it's like, no matter how much I fight, no matter how far forward we get, there's never an end victory in sight. Your victories come from the one individual at a time that finds hope, that finds a second chance, that you employ, that you help find housing, that gets custody of their kids back. And if you're a dreamer like I am, and you go through the things, and you've heard my story, so you know how chaotic my life has been, like, I am of the belief that I can heal the world. And that's my whole mindset and my mantra and what my desire is. But you're literally fighting against this beast that will never go away.
You are spot on. And I've seen it. I've taken it a step further. So our prison programs, we started out with a financial literacy course because that's what I did and that's what I knew and that's what I taught in prison. And fast forward now, we've got over 36 programs inside of prisons nationwide and over 40 states and, you know, 1 million inmates and all this other fun data. And that feels good. I get emails every day. My mom saw this and wanted me to reach out. My dad's incarcerated and he's taking your course. And I have a kid right now. I call him a kid. He's not a kid. I have a young man right now back east who watched my courses in prison on real estate. His mom is a realtor, and he got out, started his own business with our blueprint, and less than 2 years later bought his first house. Yes, he had his mom as a helper, but this is a guy who took initiative. So those stories, like they're like my little drops from heaven of like, okay, you've done something good in this world. And I say that to say I have been banned from states' prisons because of the way that I've spoken to their upper echelon of management. I have been banned by state chiefs of prisons because I have questioned their morality, their ethics, their desire. And I thought that that's what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to say, hey, I saw this in this state and it worked there. But when I came to your state, I noticed that this was a roadblock and everybody told me you were the roadblock. So what's the deal? Can I help you? Do you need it? Like, let's create dialogue, because if you're the chief of prisons, I would think that you would want to change or help. Well, no, they really just want a W-2. And so I've been banned from so many prison institutions because they will manufacture. I have a great story for you. You'll enjoy this one. There was one state that we went heavy on, and we created an entrepreneur course, and I was able to go behind bars with their women, and I sat with their top 3 longest incarcerated women. One woman looked like Betty White, white hair, and Jennifer, she got 100 years. And when you go through her story, I'll send it to you offline. I'll send it to you on Dropbox because it's like 2 hours long. And it is everything that 14-year-old molested, 16-year-old, I mean, it is, Jennifer, it is horrific. And she is so happy to sit across from me. She is so positive. She's made this her life. She's no longer kicking against the fences or yelling into the void. She's like, how can I tell my story to help someone else? She's had babies while in, like, I mean, it was horrific. So I sit down with these 3 women, and all of them kind of have this same tenor of, I was a mother, I was an addict, and this one woman, in fact, had the best of intentions to help this inmate, but the inmate was so high that she said, this woman's just trying to take my kids. And so she drove her out to the desert and ran her over and lit her on fire while she was high. So they gave her 2 life sentences. So I sit down with these women and I publish these stories. They go viral. They go crazy. They're up on the inmate televisions. They're on the inmate tablets. And thousands of people from this community are reaching out to me like, wait, there has to be a better rehabilitation for these women. It's starting to get traction. I received a letter from that prison this past summer that on one of the days that I was filming, that they found that I brought in fruit snacks. And because this is a letter, Jennifer, I have it. I've read it to my children. They've laughed. They said, we saw that you ate fruit snacks on premise, and unfortunately, we have to suspend you from coming back in because you've broken a rule. You violated a rule. Now, here's the funny part, Jennifer. I went into that prison like I do every time on 8 hours, and I bring my own food. I bring it through their prison-approved clear backpack. The day before this alleged incident, I brought in about a half a dozen chocolate bars because I know women love chocolate. And these are very tough conversations to have. And so I start off, these women don't know me from Adam. And so I don't want to just put a camera in your face and punch them in the throat. Let's break down a little Hershey's with almonds here. Let's have a conversation and a coffee. Let's have let me make you feel like a human for 60 freaking minutes. The whole room is in tears. The lieutenant's in there, the captain's in there. I've got three correctional officers. It was a beautiful experience. That wasn't on the letter though. The letter was, we saw that you brought in fruit snacks, so we're gonna have to suspend you for the time being.
Light on the issue of why are we not doing more?
Come on, come on, come on. I can give you these stories over the last decade of they welcome me in because it looks good on their books, or it looks good to their governor to give a sound bite of, oh, we're bringing in an entrepreneur course or a financial literacy course or a fatherhood course to our inmates so that they can lower recidivism and turn back to be productive citizens. Well, you know what? On a closed prison campus, if 40% of your inmates are peeing dirty, it's because your cops are dirty.
Yes.
It's because your cops are bringing in drugs. That's the reason behind this. And if your people are coming back on a recidivism rate that's 8 out of 10, it's because your rehabilitation sucks. It's because your case managers don't give a crap.
No. And it's because they're not bringing in people that have lived it.
You got it.
Across from these inmates and say, I was you.
You got it.
You and I can show you and I can help you how figure out how to navigate this, but it starts here. You got to be willing to go in here and look at the things that you're holding on to that you've never faced that have created this void and this pain and this trauma, and you got to be willing to release it.
And yes, you have to release it and you have to have a space to talk about it.
Yes.
Every high-ranking gang member that I've had the opportunity to interview comes from a fatherless home in a place that they were seeking acceptance. And most of the highest ranking gang members will tell you that they were just scared little boys. And so they created this massive veneer. And
Yeah.
that's why they're so high ranking. The guys that never really got anywhere, that did like an attempted robbery and a dope deal gone wrong, those idiots at those low level, you were in this game for years. The highest ranking gang members are typically intelligent.
Very.
And so I sit across from these individuals and I'm like, there's no way in the world that you're a leader of this gang and you're going to be able to have open dialogue about why it brings you sadness that you didn't have a father while somebody's trying to stab you in this environment.
Yeah.
It's a quandary. It is. Which is why I think we have to continue to do what you and I are doing, and that is to publish a story that's unique and to publish a story that is full of scars and poor choices and mistakes. And I never want anybody to go, man, I just couldn't do that. You can. You said it yourself. From 17 to 22, I made these choices, and at 22 and beyond, I didn't. There is a blueprint to not be an addict ever again. There is a blueprint for success for all of the women listening to this. There's a blueprint to get away from addictive individuals or harmful men, right? Like, and I believe that starts with, I'm not a woman, so you can correct me, but I believe that starts with telling these women and showing these women all of what's inside of them is enough.
Yes. So I have there's one prison in Alabama that I've been to several times. I went under a federal contract and they've brought me back privately. It's FCI Aliceville. And the one thing that I say to women is you have the ability to give life. You literally birth humans on the inside of you. You have this gift. And as a woman, whether you choose to honor that and birth something or not, you have the power to do that. Therefore, you can birth anything it is that you desire, good or bad, right or wrong. The choice, the power is yours. What is it that you're going to birth? Like, what is that going to look like for you? Today, am I going to choose that from this moment forward, I am birthing a new life, a new opportunity without the chains and the weight from my past? You have the ability to do that. You are a life giver. Give it back to yourself.
Jeez, that's good. Man, that's good. That's the message that they need. And again, I'm not a woman, but anytime I get to speak with them, I just want them to understand that whatever is inside of them, whatever God-given abilities is inside of them is enough. It's enough to do anything that you want.
Yeah, it comes down to that, what you said, though. They have to believe that they're worthy of it. And
Have to.
they have to. And so many women, and not just women, men as well, feel unworthy because of the things that they've done in their past or the way that they've, grown up. I actually, in one of my business, I am a hypnotherapist. So I do inner child healing therapy with people. I do energy work. I take people on, down spiritual journeys, one-on-one coaching. And it's all about going back to the place that you got stuck at and unpacking that. That is where real freedom comes from, because you're carrying this and it's like this void or this wound within yourself. And until you face that, until you fix that, it's going to show up in other ways. You may not be addicted to drugs anymore, but you might be addicted to work. You might be addicted to making money. You might be addicted to food. You may be addicted to sex. Whatever it is, it shows up in a pattern over and over and over and over again until you fix the thing that started the pattern in the first place.
Mic drop.
Yes.
So good. So good.
Yes.
Man, I love it. Well done. Well done. I love what you're doing. I think it's incredible.
So tell us what all you're doing today. Closing thoughts, final messages.
Man, what am I doing today? My best friend and business partner, we have a venture capital firm where we purchase real estate and small businesses. I've had the opportunity to build a lot of small businesses over the years, and the best ones are with the formerly incarcerated. We've done pest control, trucking, landscaping, vending, all with formerly incarcerated individuals. Blue collar, high touch point, which a lot of these folks are. A lot of the individuals coming out of prison are charismatic. They're
Yes.
great salespeople. They were just in the wrong product. So, they don't have a problem going door to door and selling pest control for us. They do great. So that is what takes up the bulk of my day. I'm an investor 24/7 looking for opportunities to place capital in small businesses and in real estate. A lot of our reentry stuff from a real estate perspective, they kind of go hand in hand. So we've got federal contracts and get to place people in beds that aren't roach infested and aren't full of drug addicts. So it becomes really rewarding overall. And I say that just simply because I hope everybody who listens to this, who maybe you didn't go to prison, maybe you didn't go to jail, but maybe you're just thinking that you just can't do it or aren't good enough. That's the biggest message that I hope resonates with anybody listening or watching this is that, I came from a broken home. I came from a drug addicted, organized crime member fatherhood. And I didn't repeat those patterns. I didn't have to repeat those patterns. I felt that I was worthy of more than that, whether I've been to prison or not, whether I'm, look like I could be on tomorrow's episode of Jerry Springer or not. I chose, to do what I wanted to do, which was reverse engineer a life where my wife and my children and my community and my neighborhood would be proud of the scars that I have. And so I get to lead with those scars. I get to talk about those scars up front, which brings more people to my table. I don't have this idea of perfection, whether I'm in church or not. I don't have this feigned veneer about me. What you see is what you get. Most of the time, I'm going to be loud and obnoxious, and there's a 68% chance I'll swear. And I think that's what brings people closer to me. It's not the perfection. And you can still do fantastic things in the world with a felony. You can still build big businesses with a felony. You can still build a fantastic family with a felony. You can do all of these things because of the wrong that happened to you. You can take that and you can pivot and you can do anything that you set your mind to. It is a ton of work. I still deal with the hurdles. I don't want anybody to think that just because I'm here, I still deal with the hypocrisy. I still deal with the online hate. I'm sure you get a lot of that as well. The keyboard warriors are violent. I still get all of the looks. That never is going to go away, but what does go away is the guilt and the shame and the scarlet letter that you placed upon yourself for the criminal record that you may or may not have, or for the poor choices that you may or may not have made as a father or a mother, the guilt and the shame and the lack that you think that you have internally. All of that dissipates when you can put it all out on the table and say, these are the things that I've been through, and these are the things that I've learned based on what I've been through. And these are the things that I've been able to do based on what I've learned, based on what I've been through. And I've got a pretty fantastic journey, and I've helped a lot of people. That to me is a showstopper. That to me is why you went through your hardship. And if you come out on the other side and you can say those things, then you went for it for a purpose.
Yes, I love that. Someone asked me one time if I could change it. Change it all, would I? Said no.
Yeah.
Be the person that I am today if I changed it. And by me going through and coming out and finding success and showing up as the woman that I am today, I'm able to help other people come through. So no, I wouldn't change it. And if you hear my story, it's really bad. I've done some crazy things. Thank goodness I don't look like what I've been through. But if I did, y'all wouldn't be watching me on this podcast.
You got it.
Well, thank you so much, Travis. If anybody would like to get in contact with you, can you share your information?
Yeah, for sure. Our website is accomplishedventures.org, and you can find me on all my socials. It starts with I am, because I love the I am statements, but it's I am Travis Richey, Richey, on all the socials. Happy to help wherever I can.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Fenced In Podcast with Jennifer Rogers. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share for more content like this. And one last thought, never forget, no darkness can outshine the light within. Jennifer Rogers, signing off.